All right, everyone. I am live now, so hopefully you can hear me. Let's see if I can see any comments or anything that pop up. Just hit a thumbs up if you can hear me. That way I know that the sound is good. All right, on my end it seems good. I don't see any messages otherwise. Says, yay, you can hear me. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Tanner. All right, because I know we had some issues with sound before, so I wanted to make sure that, we have good sound this time. I'm sorry about last week. My environment was deactivated, so unfortunately, I wasn't able to do the session. So let's dive in today. I will admit I didn't get a lot of time to prep these automations, so I'll just kind of be flying unscripted because next week, I don't know if you guys know about it, but there is the Atlassian Builders Summit, and I will be teaching and speaking at that conference next week in California. I will definitely go ahead and pop the link here in the chat before I end the broadcast for you in case you're interested in seeing what that's all about. It will be in person only, so unfortunately it won't be recorded, but lots of helpful learning things going on at that, mostly Forge track and Agile track, so really cool stuff. All right, I'm gonna stop yapping about that and jump into our lesson today because we have a lot to cover. All right, so usually when I have a JSM project, I like to use a standard workflow. And the reason why, it looks like it's not sharing the other tab. One second. My live is a little delayed, so hopefully you see the people in access section on the screen. Do you see that? Should be showing people in access. Hopefully you guys see that, because on my live that I'm viewing, I don't see that. Let's see where we are. Okay, well, I'll just carry on. So in here, once you create a service task. Oh, good. Okay, it's just a little delayed on my end. Okay. So I create a standard workflow for service tasks because I really want teams to kind of work similarly, because over the course of time, what ends up happening is you grow and you scale, right? It's just natural in business that we grow and we scale, and we end up with a lot more people on our team and a lot more users. So to streamline collecting data and kind of understanding how all of my service projects work, I usually recommend to my clients this streamlined workflow. And I'm talking about this because with the streamlined workflow, we actually then can create kind of automations off of those. So let me kind of demo this. So I built this for a client a while ago. This one's specific to them, so there's a couple extra statuses that I wouldn't typically have. But in this workflow, we have, when the ticket comes in, it lands in request submitted. Then auto assignment either happens, or in some teams, they grab the ticket from their queue and they assign it to themselves. Once they're ready to work on it, because just because you assigned it to you doesn't mean you can work on it right this second, they pop that in progress. As they move through the ticket, then other things might happen. Like they might have a question to ask the person who submitted the ticket, which is the reporter in Jira, right? So they'll flip that back to waiting on reporter. And I know we're going to talk about automations, I promise, but this is important. So most of my automations are kind of looking at this, right? Once the reporter responds, I don't want my team to have to click into every ticket to see if there is a comment, right? I want to leverage the tools within Atlassian to let my team know that there was a response received. So typically a user doesn't change it from waiting on reporter. Instead, an automation changes it to response received, which is pretty cool. So I actually have some of these workflow automations built in, and I have their JSON file, which is pretty cool. Actually, this is leading me to another environment, which I don't want to go to, but that's okay, because I think this is for their documentation specifically. But I do have it over here, response received. This is the JSON file. So I'm going to download it really quick. So I'm going to also show you how to import automations that you've previously built. So if you are a Jira admin, work smarter, not harder. When you build something wonderful, export it and save it. Put it in your pocket for later, because I promise you that you will probably need that again in the future for another client, or maybe you move on from where you're working right now and you want to leverage things that you've already created rather than have to recreate them. So long as I use basically this workflow, which I think we built in a prior session, or at least close to it we've built, then I can use that same automation because the status names are the same, pretty much everything is the same, and we're just gonna kind of go in and update. So let's go in and import that automation I made. Now, in order to import automations, you can't do that in the project level. You see how in the project level we'll come into the automations. I don't think I'll get the import button here. So we can add system rules, we can create system rules with a template or from scratch, but we can't import. So you have to have the global settings. So you need these Jira admin settings to be able to come into systems. Once you're in system, you're going to open that flyout menu if it's closed on you, and you're going to click on global automation. Let's make sure I'm logged in the right account. No, don't ruin my demo today too. Okay, we're getting better. Tiny little, hopefully there's not an outage. We just need that button over here. Cool, okay. It was being a little stubborn. So then you're gonna click on the three little dots and click import rule. As long as you have a JSON file, you can go ahead and import that. So let's go ahead and import that because I'm working smarter, not harder today. Oh, wrong file. Okay, automation. I don't know what I was trying to, what? It's this role. Upload. Oh no, let's just refresh. Maybe it's just having a moment. It's thinking it's a Monday, but it's not. Newsflash, it's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. All right, cool. So this is the workflow. This is what I happen to have had it named when I imported it. So we want to check that we're going to import that one, and we're going to select which project. So we're going to import it into here. Please reload and try again. Oh. All right. I think they are having a bug. Well, once you do that, the automation should then be imported, okay? So we'll kind of skip through that. I might already have this automation imported, but I just need the global page to load to search for it. Oh, come on. Okay, let's get over to Service Desk and see if I have it imported somewhere. Wrong tab. Okay, let's go, because there must be some sort of outage. I didn't check today before we got started, but we will make do. All right, so let's go into my automations. Oh my God, like literally nothing is loading. All right, well, let's take a lesson on how to see if there is an outage. If you think there might be an outage, you can click the help button and you can go into the contact support, but first we're gonna check for an outage. And at the top, in resources, you can click on system status if you don't already have it favorited. So it's saying there's nothing wrong, but it might just be my account still isn't quite right. I'm working with Atlassian to fix it, so it just might be specific to the issues I was having prior last week, which is very weird. Let's just exit this tab. I'm not sure what to do here. If I can't get automation to load, we won't be able to. Yeah, I think we're having some issues. So 1 minute. This is really a bummer, man. Okay, my legacy automation loads. Error reload, try again. Something went wrong loading your labels. Okay, not really worried about my labels. I just want to see my roles. Okay, well, we'll just recreate the role. It's just hard because that role calls out some specific things like looking to see if the user is a customer or not. So we can actually create it from scratch technically. So we can come in here and we can choose a trigger. A trigger is the when this automation should fire. So we essentially want that automation to fire anytime someone comments, and specifically if the ticket is in waiting on reporter, okay? How about trying incognito mode? That's a good suggestion. But then I have to log all the way back in and you're gonna have to watch all that. So I could try it. Let me grab a new tab. I don't even know how to do that. New private window. Let me try that. We'll see if it lets me. Give me 1 second. I'm logging in on the other side. All right. I'm in. Now let me go to the back end. Somehow I ended up in my portal. And we will change my video capture. Share screen. Let's change it to the incognito window. I think it's this one. It's not coming up as an option because it's private. Okay, give me 1 second. I'll just see if it fixed it first and then we'll figure it out from there. It's also because I select which window to stream to you guys. So we don't, no, it's doing the same thing on the private window. It's definitely something to do with my account. So let's not worry about it. We'll just go this way and we'll, the show must go on. So I'll just teach you how to make it from scratch essentially. So what I was getting at was we want the automation to trigger on a comment, but specifically a customer comment in this case. And getting the same errors. Yeah. Okay, David. Maybe we can report a problem. It's definitely an outage. Or John, sorry. It's definitely an outage. Good to know it's not just me. I feel like they're picking on me the last 2 weeks, man. The only things that are out are the things I'm trying to teach on. All right. So we want that automation to fire when a comment is made, but specifically from a customer. So how do we do that? How do we call out customer? Well, first we need to say when it's commented on, right? So the trigger is going to be a comment. And I use the search bar. I never scroll here. I just always use the search bar. So we want to comment work item commented. We don't want to commit. So we're going to go ahead and use the work item commented. Now, I usually leave this open unless we're kind of trying to only capture certain comments. Comment as the main action means you're not really doing anything else while commenting. Comment during transition is when that transition screen pops up, you know, how it's like a little comment at the bottom. That's what that means. And then this means you've edited fields and you've commented. So we just want any comment really to happen. And we want a user-related condition. So we want either the user to be the reporter if the reporter is your customer. Or you can actually do any, let's see, you could do assignee. So if you're only looking for assignee, you can say reporter. You can also say if the reporter is in this group, you could do it like that. So you could do it like that, or you could come in here and you can, I forgot how I did it before. I think I did user condition, and I did so long ago that I did it. And I think I did user who triggered the event is, and then I did the customer group is in a role, and then I did, I don't even know if I have portal customers here in this environment, so we'll just kind of like look. So service desk customers, there you go. So basically this is saying if the user that commented is in the role of customer on this service desk, so you can permission this in many different ways. That means on the people in access or in customer permissions, they have to be able to be a service desk customer. They have to be one. Then it will allow this action to occur, okay? So then we can hit next. So it's like, okay, when the rule is triggered, we want when it's commented on, and then we actually happen to have a condition or an if the initiator is the customer. Then it's like, what are we gonna do? We're basically then gonna transition that ticket. So if you just search the word transition, we're gonna transition that work item. Now we want that work item to specifically go in this status so that our team doesn't have to see that the response was made. So they're just looking at their queue and they're like, oh, yes, cool, the customer responded, or whoever they were waiting on responded. So we want response received as our landing status. So we want the destination to be response received. And again, I just start typing and that brings all that up. There you go. Now, if you wanted to do a secondary action like update a field or any of that, you can totally do that here in line, as long as you want it to occur on the same trigger. All right, so when you're naming your role though, you want to make sure you click on the role thing. I name my role because I'm a good Jira admin and I want to make sure that I can find stuff very easily. I basically name my role the project key, so the acronym for the project, and then the what is it doing, and if I think you'll still be confused, I'll put a description. So here, I believe the project is AST, and then this way everyone knows, and forgive my spelling, I before E except after C and neighbor and way. I know this, but still yet I do it every single time. Did it correct it for me? And I thought it didn't. Okay. So you just put it in there. You want to make sure your scope is your project, because if you're doing it in the global, you can make this work on any project. So if you have several projects with this automation needed, don't create one for each project, just create a global one, okay? Now there is some usage concerns when creating global automations. Global automations do count against your executions. If you have a limit or you're nearing your limit, then you want to do one per project. It's just really hard to maintain that way. So definitely take a look at your automations, and I'm just going to show you how, but I don't think that we'll be able to. Let me open up systems and see. Let's see if it'll work right now, if it's going to cooperate. Yeah, it's not working. But you can actually check your usage in this global automation section. You can also come in, basically create this rule in one project, and then you can change its scope. So don't worry if you already have this created somewhere and you wanted to then share it with other projects that maybe are new, that you just created a new project. You can just come into the global automation configurations and just update this scope. And as you see, it says here that you can only do that here. I do want to explain a few things about automation that typically get people kind of off kilter and not able to use their automation, and they get a bunch of errors and they don't know why it's failing. And one of those is because the actor doesn't have permission in the project to do the action, okay? So it's really important that you don't set this to people. And why? Is because if this was me and you offboard me, how will this automation run? So I like to leave the actor's automation for Jira. Unless on the history of a ticket, I want it to say my name specifically, that I did that action, I want it to say automation for Jira, okay? Because if it says automation for Jira, on the history of the ticket, it will say automation for Jira, transition the ticket to response received, okay? I wish when it left those comments, it told you which automation. That'd be great. That'd be really helpful. Like if this automation had, a key or a number and it left it there, that would be really helpful. And that's one of the suggestions I've put in to Atlassian on the history of the ticket, but it doesn't. So at least this actor lets me know it's automation and I need to go hunt the automation down, right? So then I would go looking through the project's automations to see which automations can perform those functions. Right, so once you have this automation essentially created, you have the actor and you know that this actor has or doesn't have permission, you're gonna need to update the permissions. So I'm gonna just show you how really quick to make sure your automation for Jira has the permission it needs, because this is one of those things that literally I get paid the big bucks to fix all the time, which anybody should be able to do. So I'm just kind of trying to shut all these extra things that we don't need, because it is getting a little overwhelming. See if that's gonna load. Okay, so we have our people and our access. So these are the people and the roles that we've assigned them. And then we have our, open link in new tab. Then we have our project permissions, which is that permission scheme for the project. Now, when we come in here and hit edit, we want to stop and read. Immediately stop and read this little box. If this is shared by multiple projects, the change you're about to make impacts everyone. So you just want to make sure that that change is applicable to doing that. Now you can scroll down and hunt and peck and hit update and then add, automation for Jira this way. But I'm lazy and I work smarter, not harder. So I click grant permissions because I want to give automation for Jira a lot of permissions, not just one. So how you would do this is you're actually going to, it doesn't seem like it makes sense, but you can actually look for a single user and you're going to type automation. And you're going to look for this automation for Jira, okay? I know. I don't know why it doesn't have its own little checky box, but it doesn't. In automation for Jira, you need to give it the basic things that you like to have your automation do. So in this example, we're having the automation transition the ticket. In order to transition the ticket, you have to be able to see it, right? So we need to give it browse. Makes sense? We also wanted to be able to edit fields maybe. So we want to edit issues. And we might want it to be able to add a comment. What other things do I typically use automation for Jira to do? Oh, an attachment. When I'm creating an issue, I want it to be able to create the attachment too. We want to create issues. And then we might have automation for Jira assigning an issue to someone. What else? I think that's pretty much it. Browse, edit, comment, attachment. That's pretty good. We'll start there. So we're going to hit grant. That's going to give automation for Jira. If we control find or shift find, depending on what computer you're on. And I'm using a non-Mac keyboard, so my things are a little backwards. If I search automation, then I can kind of see everywhere that it is used. You see? I love to use control find when I'm looking at the permission scheme, so I can just jump right to what I need. I put it on the permission scheme rather than the people tab because I don't want it to get accidentally removed. I always want it to have the permission it needs to do the automation that it needs in this project. So if you have a standardized permission scheme, make sure that Jira for automation for Jira has the permission to do the actions you need it to do for those automations, okay? So there is some work in there. Other low-hanging fruit, easy solutioning that I see happen all the time is this stupid little checkbox at the bottom. He is a pesky one. He gets people all the time. You essentially want to check this box if another automation is going to trigger this one. So that means if one automation is editing a field for you, and then this automation's trigger is when that field is edited. Okay? Because that automation started the ball rolling. Like think of dominoes. It started the dominoes falling. You want this checked. If you don't have this checked, your automation will not work because this is thinking without it checked that a human is doing it. Okay? So if a human wasn't the one to be commenting, then we would need to check this box. In our use case right now, we don't need to. You can do that with Atlassian add-ons project access, but you'll still notice some issues. This is the exact user or actor, Christoph, that if anybody didn't see Christoph's question, he said, why aren't these permissions given via Atlassian add-on project access? You'll still run into issues is the short answer, Christoph. Humor me and do it this way. You'll have a whole lot less issues. It's funny because sometimes it'll work for certain things and then other times it won't, and I will go in and be like, why is this not working? I usually use the actor, but you can do it that way as well. Anyways, this is my preferred method. I run into less problems this way. All right, so a pesky checkbox, always double check. So if you have a failure on your rule and it's not running, sit and think with yourself, wait, the checklist I go through in my head is, does the actor have permission? Is this checkbox needed? Those are the two first things I always check. Then I actually look into the configurations. I don't even look at them until I check those two things. So once we've had our role and we like our, title and all that and everything looks good, we want to turn the role on. You can also save it without turning it on. If you would have clicked the arrow down before I did that, you can save it without turning on, or you can just toggle it off if you want to disable it. So maybe you're not ready, you've created it, but it's not going live until Friday. Who knows? You could always disable it and, I'm confusing it, and be ahead of the curve. Once this automation's run a bunch, you can come into the audit log and you can see that it's run. Another suggestion I wish that we had and feature that I wish we had would be to show what configurations changed here. That would be really great, really helpful, because sometimes people change something and then now the rule's not working. It would be really cool to see that, but unfortunately you don't really see that. When you do have a failure though, they do give a pretty good explanation. As long as you understand like Jira speak, you can usually figure out what the problem is. I wish I could dive into some automations that I have previously configured, because I might have some failures where we could look at them, but unfortunately do not. So this is one of those automations though that I think is incredibly helpful if you have like a standardized workflow like this. We would also repeat this for waiting on vendor and waiting on member. In their use case, their reporter was their internal team, and because they were a banking company, and the member contacted the reporter submitted the ticket, but sometimes the reporter's response was, hey, I'm waiting on the response from the member, the banking member. So then they would put that ticket in waiting on member, and when this reporter came and said something, then it would move to response received, right? So this just kind of let them know if the reporter or the internal person was like lollygagging, or if they were lollygagging because it was waiting on their external customer, in this case, which was the banking member. I use waiting on vendor a lot. A lot of times when you're dealing in a service desk, if you're an IT team or a support team, sometimes there are bugs and issues beyond your control, like we have today with the automation. I might be trying to action this ticket, but I have to wait on the vendor now, right? I have to wait on Atlassian to figure out what's going on with this little mini outage that we're having, and them to fix that. So you might use that. So we could make this rule, look at any status. So basically this is like, if it's not even saying if it's in a certain status here, this would work for any status. It's going to try to put it in response received. So we might need to develop this rule a little bit more. Okay. So what I mean by that is we need to call out if it's in these statuses only in these waiting statuses. Because right now it's going to fire and if it's in any status, even if it's on hold, and the customer responds, it's going to go to response received. If it's in progress, it's going to try to go to response received. You know what I mean? So we might not want that to happen. And it totally depends on your use case, right? If that is the case and you need to add in a condition in between here, because we have the user condition, but we might need to add a condition. That would be an if. Okay, so we're going to say if, and I'm going to say if or else, right? So I might have a rule where if it's in waiting on reporter, I want it to go here to response received. I'm just giving an example, and maybe instead if it's in waiting on report on vendor and someone comments, I don't find it overly helpful for it to go into response received. I might want it to go in progress instead, right? So you can actually create an if else. An if else means it will keep reading on. Just a single if or condition here. If this doesn't, like this ticket, this work item does not meet this condition, it will stop there. It will not continue reading, right? It's just going to stop. But if it's an if else, it will read down the entire list in order from top to bottom until it gets to the end, okay? So that's the difference between just an if and an if else. Because when you do an if else, it starts to create like a little branch of the if. So I will just demo, even though it doesn't quite make sense for this use case, but we'll just demo how you would configure this if you needed to do an if else because you want it to continue reading down. So we'll say if the status maybe, which is a field condition, work item, and status is actually the default, but you can pretty much see, all of the fields in your environment here for the most part. So we can say if the status is one of these ones, and we can select the ones we wanted, which were waiting on vendor, we'll just do waiting on reporter and waiting on member. So we'll say waiting on reporter. And I'm glad we did this in our workflow session a few weeks ago. If you didn't catch that, It is recorded on this YouTube channel, so you can replay it. Didn't mean to delete that. Sorry about that, guys. Waiting on vendor. Cool. So we're saying, okay, Jira, when a comment happens, if on that work item, the person who commented was a service desk customer, and the status is either waiting on reporter or waiting on vendor, then we want maybe it to transition the ticket. You see? And you can drag them up. How cool is that? But maybe if it's not one of these status, we want it to do something else. So that would be our else. So we can say, or basically if or else, otherwise, maybe we want to look at a different status, and we're going to use that waiting on vendor one. Oh, this was supposed to be waiting on member. That's my bad. We might not have it in this site, that's why. So we'll just leave it waiting on reporter for now. In our workflow session, we didn't create that status, it looks like. So we'll make this one waiting on vendor. So instead we'll use equal since it's just a singular item. So if it's waiting on vendor, then maybe we want it to do something else. We might want it to edit a field first. We might want it to, maybe we have vendor SLAs and we have a vendor field that we want. I'm just gonna try to find a field. I don't have a lot in this environment on this project specifically either. So let's just say we want it to edit. I don't even know. We'll pretend due date is like a vendor response date field, right? We might want to record the date that the vendor responded, and we're gonna make that today. Maybe we're gonna, make it today. That type of thing. I don't know. You can use smart values here. If you don't know smart values, go to Google and just type smart values, Jira. These are so much easier to use. I prefer this particular document, which is really easy to find. You can start learning how to use smart values. So you could come in here and click on date and time. So we might want now. So these allow you to pull today, now in there. So you could just do now, like that. 2 brackets, curly brackets, and now. So it's now, not today. You see? So that's gonna put the due date today in the due date field. Dates are really tricky though. A lot of times you have formatting problems with those. I'll just preface that. Put your gloves on, buckle in when you're gonna deal with updating date fields, because the format of each field matters. And if they have a different format, then you have to come in and look at smart values and change the formatting of those smart values. And how you would do that is coming into this format section where you add. So now if I needed to change the format, I'd put dot format, and then I would select which format that I want. Okay, so it gets a little tricky, or you could do it like this, Jira.date. I don't recall off the top of my head which format is due date. So I wouldn't be able to tell you which one to put here for due date specifically, but each date field, definitely day and time, also has its own format. So just be mindful if it's a date field that it's going to take a little extra researching and diving into these smart values. But this documentation is so incredibly helpful, and it gives you examples, which is cool. So it helps you learn how to put together smart values. Typically, the smart value is the what, or the field, and then a dot, no spacing, and then the format. And if it has more than one word, the second word and third word are going to be cased. That way that Jira knows it's like a new word, essentially, not one big long word. So SMART values are incredibly helpful when you're building automations, okay? You can call them out. It's so much easier to use SMART values here. Way, 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 way easier. All right, so if I wanted to record the vendor date into this due date field, I could totally do that if I wanted. And then I could maybe instead transition the issue to, let's transition it to in progress. There's no way. I was like, we definitely have it in progress. It's just being weird. So you could do that. You could even do it all in one swoop. So you see how I can set fields while transitioning. So I don't even need this one if I don't want. So I could do here and get rid of this one. And the reason why you want to be careful and try to consolidate as much as possible is there is an action like execution limit. So you can only have so many of these in one long string. So many actions essentially happening. I believe it's 30, but don't quote me. Something close to that. I think it's 30. I recently hit it on building a complex automation for a customer. So you just want to be careful that you're being mindful of your automation isn't something that's going to have to like continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. So if you're using this if else a lot, that's where you'll run into like adding another else and another else and another else. And next thing you know, you'll have 25, 25 scenarios that you're basically automating. It's great because you're leveraging the tool to like work smarter, not harder. So one of them is updating values for the users, transitioning the tickets for the users so that they can see the statuses in their queue clearly defined for them. Another one that I'll talk to you about is also helping to get rid of tickets who ultimately end up abandoned, right? So a lot of times users will submit a ticket and then you'll comment on the ticket and put it on waiting on reporter because you need this information to action whatever it is they're asking, right? But then it's crickets. Suddenly they're not responding to you. I call that an abandoned ticket. So I have automation that reminds the customer to basically comment on it. So what that automation does is it looks at the last time the ticket was updated and it will actually go ahead and close or comment on the ticket. First, it'll comment a bunch of times, and then we'll have another automation that closes that ticket if they never provide the data. So the reminder in this case that I had set up, it looks at the status, which is waiting on reporter, waiting on member, and the ticket has not been updated by 3 business days. Meaning it hasn't been commented on, nobody's edited anything on that. Then what will happen is the automation comments on the ticket, and that sends off that, comment action happened, which ends up emailing the reporter. And it lets them know that if they don't, respond, so in the body of that email, it's going to let them know if they don't respond that the ticket's going to automatically close in 3 business days. So I can kind of show you how to, action this one since we can't download the file. It's not functioning for us today. How we're going to do this one's a little bit different because we basically need to run what's called a timed automation, a scheduled automation. And that's going to run daily. And it's going to basically look at the tickets and go, okay, of all the tickets, what has or hasn't been updated, right? So it's a little bit different. So our trigger is going to be entirely different. I'm just going to hit update on this one. I'm honestly afraid to go back to automation, so we might just use the same screen and I might just erase everything just in case it doesn't load. All right. Okay, so our trigger is going to be a bit different. We want this to basically check in on the tickets daily and see what tickets we have that, meet that criteria. So that is actually going to be called a scheduled automation. So you're going to hit scheduled. Scheduled is unique. And it's unique because inside of scheduled, if you want it to run on a certain day and time, you can totally adjust the occurrence. So in our use case, we want it to run on business days. Let me clean them up, Justin, and I'll add them to the comments. So Justin's question was, would I be willing to send out the automations I've previously exported for us to import them directly on our own? Yes, but let me clean them up, give them better names, and then I will send them over by actually attaching them here in the live. So on the YouTube channel. So follow my YouTube channel and just check back in a couple days. I will have some sort of drive or somewhere you can go, because I have to figure out where I can put them for you, that you can go to and download them. I'll also put a screenshot of my standardized workflow, because though you'll have to tweak them. No matter which way, you'll have to tweak them, because the status names, even though they match, the status IDs don't. So you'll have to select the correct status in your environment, which is what I was going to show you, but it cannot. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, I don't mind sharing them at all. Why reinvent the wheel? So on here, on a scheduled status, we will go ahead and select when we want it to run, what time. Let's be mindful, let's think about when people typically check their emails, because ultimately the tickets that haven't been responded to will get a comment, which will result in an email. We don't want to email people at lunchtime. They're not at their desk. That email is going to get buried. We also don't want to email them too early, because we want to be respectful of people's work-life balances and sending them notifications. So 9 a.m. seems pretty fair. You can select the time zone. But if we want to this to only run on certain tickets, we actually need to embed that in a JQL. In this, if we create ifs over here, like conditions over here, it's going to yell at us and tell us the conditions need to be in this JQL, okay? We also don't want this pesky checkbox that always pre-checks. It's defaulted to be checked on. We want it to look at rules that haven't changed. So this won't work for us, because this is for work items that have changed. So we want that to be off for this use case. Now, if you only wanted to look at tickets that have recently changed or something's new on them, then you can check that. I honestly never use this checkbox checked, so I'm not sure what purpose it serves other than annoying me, to be fair. So I wish its default was off, but it's not. This is another one that usually gets people, but they're using scheduled automations. It's almost always not running because this is checked. It runs, there's just no actions because the items haven't changed, okay? So we're gonna create a JQL to look at that updated date. I don't like creating JQL here because I can't see the whole thing. So I actually come into my project and I go to filters, because I am a visual girl and I really, 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 really like to see things that way. Oh yeah, they just finally popped it in. Well, we were early birds, so we noticed the issue with Atlassian first. Thanks so much for that update in the chat. Glad to know we're not crazy. Just realized I'm in my, I don't want to accidentally, here we go, this will work. So I'm gonna jump back into the project itself and go into filters, if I can do that, and I do search work items. Two things. Come in here and use this if you're bad at JQL, okay? Switch to basic, all right? I'm your friend, let me help you. It auto selects this created within the last 30 days. At some point we need to uncheck that. But first we're gonna look for more filters because we wanna look for that updated date. Okay. This is where you can put a range of time. So we want things that have been updated, have not been updated in more than 3 days, okay? So ago, this is more than, so we're looking for issues that were updated more than 3 days ago. That's gonna be opposite for us. So this one might not work, but it might get us close so that we can view the JQL and we can cheat, okay? So this is saying updated is less than 3 days ago. We want to swap this around. We want it to be more than, the updated date is more than 3 days ago, okay? And we'll get rid of this. If we were to have another condition where we want this to run again on, say, day 5, we might want the window to only look at 3 days ago exactly. So we might not want more or less, we might just want to be put equals. So the updated, it was updated, you know, less than, because the minus sign, less than 3 days ago, 3 days prior. Okay, we could try that. So if you're not sure if that's the right data, and I don't have a lot of data in my instance, you can hit search and you can just verify that the tickets are correct, okay? So as you work through your date, whatever it's going to be, just double check that that is the correct, those are the correct tickets you want this to action on, okay? And you can do that really easily here in a filter. You can't really, like, yeah, you can validate. So I can bring that, now that I've, let's do, just so we have tickets. Okay, these, if we weren't sure, we could add the column, we can add updated here, and we can take a look at that, okay? Okay, these were updated definitely more than 3 days ago. Like, these are really old. These are perfect. These are prime candidates. Okay, so if this is the date in the range that we wanted everything, and we wanted this to run, you know, every 3 days, all of that, you could totally do that. Here, you just verify what you've selected is the things that you want this automation to run on. We'll just go with this one for now because I'm not going to get into semantics. And we can pop that now into here. You can still validate the query in here and you're going to see the 104 work items. You can click in here. So it's letting you know that it's going to, have an excessive load, meaning it's going to run all the time. So they want you to know that this rule shouldn't run too much, and they're trying to like caution you, okay? We're running this just once a week at 9 a.m. We'll be fine. If it was, it's not going to always be 104 tickets, right? So yes, you can go ahead and run with that. You can put it in here and see how many tickets. If you happen to know that how many tickets there were off the top of your head because you saw them and you just knew, that's great. But for people that are new to JQL, that's not helpful. So just pop open the filter, put the filter, validate that these are the correct tickets you want it to run on, and then put it in here, because this would be really tragic to run an action on 104 tickets and those aren't the right tickets, and now you have to backpedal and undo that action. So be very cautious and make sure that you've validated. Okay, once you have your JQL, you have your time and all of that, then you hit next. That's how you create a scheduled a scheduled automation. I don't know, I'm losing my words this morning. I swear my body thinks it's a Monday. So now that we have it scheduled, we then want to tell it what to do. And in this case, I like to use the native emails as much as possible. So the native notification scheme inside of projects. So this won't work commenting on a ticket to then send an email to the customer if we do not have customer email turned on, right? So it is important to think, okay, if I use the comment feature, are those notifications turned on? You might be using the comment feature to tell the agent something. Cool, that's great. But if you have agent notifications off for comments, they're never going to know. You're just going to be commenting on the ticket to yourself. You're going to be your automation is going to be talking to itself. So it is important when you're thinking about how you're going to notify someone that you make sure if you're using built-in notifications like that they're turned on. You can also send an email through this system, but the email address will be different. So people might not recognize it, and it might go to their spam. All sorts of things might happen. So where you're able, try to use the internal notifications. So use actions that trigger a notification. In my case, for this one, we would then be commenting on the ticket. You're going to comment on work item. Again, leverage your smart values. So you can actually come in here and do issue.reporter. And that's going to give the reporter's name. And then you can start kind of putting in details. You can put your ticket issue.summary. And you're going to tell what ticket it is, or you could put the issue.key, right? If you just want the ticket number. Because you don't want that to, I put report instead of reporter, to go to the email, things like that. So you can use your smart values here too. Leverage them as much as you can. This is where you can tell them that your ticket requires your So there is, though, special smart values for the Jira portal link, okay? So you can come in here and you can look for that. It's probably not going to come up on this list. I know what it is, but I'll just show you how to find it. This is literally what I type in. And there you go, you have it right there. Issue URL customer, either your AI will get it, or you'll see in the community it comes up a lot. If you're in service desk adminning a lot, you will become very familiar with this link, smart value. But you just paste that in, cool. That's gonna put the link for the person there straight away for them. It will be in the comment email body anyways, but if you just want to be extra cautious, you can put it there. You also have this checkbox which allows the system, it tells the system don't leave this exact same comment multiple times. So in the use case where we'd run this many times, then we definitely don't want this checked unless each time it's running our message is slightly different. So I do that a lot where I make them just slightly different, and I leave this on because the worst is just to spam some the same comment over and over. And then you want to make sure your comment visibility, it's always auto-selected to internal only. This is meant for the customer or the reporter in this use case, so we're going to hit share with customer, and then we're going to hit next. So these are all automations that I leverage in order to better serve the customer and better serve our workers, because our agents shouldn't have to chase people. Let's let automation chase the people. Then we can have the automation actually close this ticket after no actions have happened in so many days. So we can also do that. We've run out of time today for that, to go over that, just due to the issues that we had. But maybe in another section I can cover those. But yeah, so that's pretty much it today. I'm gonna go ahead and say goodbye and read some of your stuff. It looks like Liz, nice. Liz, are you going to the Builders Summit? I am going, and I'm so excited to be there. I will definitely be speaking and seeing you, so find me when you go. It'll be good to see you all and touch base. I do have some more beginner level courses for you guys. I wanted to provide technical tracks that weren't too deep in the weeds for the people that are newer that will be attending. So I am, oh good, Liz, yeah, I'm a speaker as well, so I'll see you there. Yeah, so it'll be really awesome to kind of connect and see everyone and teach. I will tell you that the lessons I've developed for the summit, I will eventually do live here. So, you know, if you can't attend and you really can't, don't worry, those like more beginner lessons that I have, I will be teaching live eventually, maybe a few weeks after, once I get back and get acclimated again to the time change. But all right, I hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye.